what it will take to begin to do so. So I'm hoping that you'll have some questions. Again, if it's just me and you, great. If not, we'll open it up to the floor and feel free to jump on in as we continue to move forward. This is definitely a fluid topic overall and exciting from my perspective, but it can be daunting for someone who has never jumped on into this entrepreneurial space. Here's the agenda that we'll follow for today. We'll start out with some introductions, our learnings, the actual reasons we'll talk about. But I got some bonus stuff too for you that I'm going to throw in that will definitely benefit you as you continue to move forward. Then we'll talk about some daily actions, and then I'll open it up for a little bit of questions as we continue to move forward. What you're looking for at on this slide right now is me, my journey. And my journey has taken me through all of these organizations, six of them, as you see there on the screen. The one up top is my own organization. But the other organizations are the organizations I've stopped at along the way. And I stopped at it on them because I've been continuously seeking out my own purpose. What is it that I'm put here on the planet to do? I think I found it now, but it took me a while. It took me probably 20 years to probably figure it out. Once I started working a little bit, maybe a little less. But you can see some of those organizations are really infamous. And now, of course, I have my own company, but also I teach entrepreneurship at the College of DuPage. So let's go ahead and dive on in as we continue to move forward. So I want to start out with like this for sure. And actually, let me stop and actually you can see my screen okay, Matt, right? Give me a thumbs up that you can see that. All right, okay, good stuff. Let's start this out by what we have learned since 2020. Something big happened in 2020, right? And I usually, actually, before when I used to do this presentation, I used to say, hey, what have we learned since 2008? Now it's about, what have we learned since 2020? What we have learned since 2020. 2020 was the pandemic, COVID-19. It changed our lives wholeheartedly, changed our mind. Listen, not even just folks here in the US, folks around the world were shifted. It changed how we live, it changed how we work, it changed even business and how we do business. A great example. Before the pandemic, while I was using Zoom or other digital virtual collaboration tools, now they're a mainstay. We kind of can't live without them to a certain extent. That's a small example. So if you're diving into business these days, it's important, imperative that you dive into Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google's got a platform. What are they called? Google something. Anyway, um, but you have to know how to use that. That pandemic changed so much stuff. I even remember it affected how I was teaching, for that matter. Students were dropping out. Actually, I had one student drop out because he got into the mask business very quickly. Won't talk about that, but it was somewhat lucrative for him. But some of the things that we've learned since then is that we have to be able to adapt and be flexible. I know many businesses that went out of business during 2020. And why? Because they weren't able to manage their money as effectively as they needed to, right? So that's one of the things that really learn. But if you even dive into it a little bit deeper, if we go to 2020 or even before 2020, jobs are just not what they used to be anymore. You know, even though the government is trying to send people back to the office, many jobs, companies are just not how we were we grew up when we were coming up. And then I don't know about you, but I don't know, the whole thing about working in a cubicle, it doesn't rub me the right way. And I've done that. I've worked in a cubicle before, but it's just who wants to be stuck here 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? It can be a little bit challenging. And then listen, sometimes how work is portrayed on TV, it's quite interesting on many, many levels. So there's so many different things that working for someone doesn't provide for us anymore. And starting your own thing, no matter what it looks like, has now become a viable option. Here's the other thing too about work as we used to know it. Job security. Is that even a thing anymore? Right? You know, the government is laying off people. When the government can lay off folks, anybody can lay off folks. So it's important that we realize that job security is not what it once was, but what also that we know is this: streams of income are so necessary. And whether it's something small, we'll talk about what small things can occur, or something that you're looking to grow and make bigger, you know, that's something that we need to be thinking about. And there is no time like the present to begin dabbling in what you dream about. Why, again, is this so important? Here's another reason why it's so important. Money does not grow on trees anymore, folks. Actually, I don't even know if it ever did. But definitely today, money does not grow. I have never seen this tree that you see here on the screen, right? And so it doesn't mean that, money won't come better for us as we continue to move forward. What it means essentially is that what are we doing now? How do we achieve financial independence? What does that look like? Who are the examples around us that have done so? Another reason that we need to be able to dive on into this entrepreneurship is the economy goes up and it goes down. I'll show you another example of that in a little bit, but I'm tired of riding the roller coaster. Yes, it's important that we pay attention to the environment, what's going on around us, but organizations go through this, and actually literally in some of the organizations that I was a part of, they would go through a hiring phase, and then they would go through a reorg and layoff phase. And after a while, I'm like, you know what? Just tired. Just tired. But okay, if this stuff wasn't enough or is not enough as to why it's so important, let me give a little bit of statistics, right? And so here's a big one right here. The U.S. Government Accountability Office says that the contingent workforce currently makes up between 30 and 40% of the U.S. labor market. And this number is expected to grow by 2050. Now, you might say, Peter, what is the contingent workforce? That is kind of a catch-all phrase, but it's a workforce that is not on permanent payroll, that includes agency workers, high skill specialists to work on high specific projects, gig workers, freelancers, and even others who work through third parties for sure. As an entrepreneur, you can do it like that too. You can work for a third party or be a part-time worker or a freelancer as you continue to move forward. So this also includes what the beginning of entrepreneurship looks like. This screen right here that you're looking at shows our current kind of where our current unemployment rate hovers around. And if you see here, it's hovering around more around the 4% mark, between 4 and 5% mark, which is not bad totally, but it's volatile. At any given moment, it could be us, right? And and the reason I say that volatility, talk about that volatility, is because history shows that it goes, if I go back to that whole cyclic thing, it goes in cycles, whether it is actually a recession or depression or a pandemic or something else, there's always something that's coming. And I'm a big advocate of preparing for the unexpected, being adaptable, being flexible. And that kind of identifies what you need to do to have that entrepreneurial mindset. I'll pause right there because that entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to adapt, to be flexible, and to quickly sense and take action and get organized under uncertain conditions. Here's a quick example of that. During the pandemic, I watched many businesses assemble and pivot and become viable businesses as a result of the pandemic. We watched restaurants, figure out what to do during the pandemic because people weren't coming to the restaurants to sit down. They quickly converted to delivery or pickup, right? So this entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to persevere, accept and learn from failure, and get comfortable with a certain level of discomfort. This whole mindset conversation comes from a book from Dr. Carol Dweck called Just That Mindset. And in it, she talks about two different types of individuals. If you pay attention to the individual on the right-hand side, that individual portrays a fixed mindset. Now, watch the phrases that accompany that individual on the right-hand side. When I'm frustrated, I give up. Failure is a limit of my abilities. I'm either good at it or not. Oftentimes, I hear this from college students. You know, professor, I'm no good at math. And what begins to happen when you say that, or think that, or digest that over and over again? I'm no good at math. I'm no good at math. I'm no good at math. What begins to happen? We begin to really believe that. We begin to really think that this is us. I'm never going to be good at math. When the truth is, if we work hard enough at it, at the repetition, 5 by 5, 5 times 5 becomes very easy. And 6 times 4 becomes really easy. And we memorize those math equations because of the repetition that went into it. And that's why that person on the left-hand side with that growth mindset is so, so important. Now pay attention to those phrases on the left-hand side. Challenges help me to grow. Failure is an opportunity to grow also. I love this one right here. I am inspired by the success of others. As you continue to move forward in this presentation, but also in your career, in your life, in your business, continue to ask yourself, am I embodying that growth mindset? And if I'm not, what are some things that I might need to change? Here's a caveat though. We all are fixed in some areas of our lives, some area. Do you know what that might be for you? Many of us are ignorant of that. Many of us are naive to that. We sweep it under the rug. Some of us know it and say, hey, I'm going to be fixed here. But if you really are trying to embrace this entrepreneurial mindset, you got to really dive into that growth aspect of it. Here's some other entrepreneurial mindset truths that I'm not going to read for you. I love that one that's bolded though. See, the thing about this whole entrepreneurial thing, people think that an entrepreneur is born an entrepreneur when truly it's not. You can become an entrepreneur. You can become a great one at that. And the one of the biggest things I love about entrepreneurship, I'll talk about this a little bit later on too, is we collaborate more than we compete. People who are in my same business and are going after the same targets, I don't see them as enemies or competitors. I see them as colleagues. What can I learn from them? What can we collaborate on to make our both of our businesses better? What are some small things that we can do to advance our cause? So as you look at all of these different truths that you see here on the screen, I'm hoping that you are able to ultimately embrace the fact that, you know what, I can do this if I dive in and and stick with it. Because the truth of the matter is, Robert Kiyosaki says this, great opportunities are not seen with your eyes, they are actually seen with your mind. Start with that mindset for sure. Okay. Any questions, comments, or thoughts as we get ready to dive on into these reasons? These 5 reasons. 5 reasons why you gotta start this business today. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Reason number 1. The barriers to entry are super low. Now you're like, what does that even mean? I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There is no time like the present to start a business, but in 2025 and beyond, it's the easiest thing to do. Here's what I mean. The truth of the matter is this. You can go in your house, find some clothes, or go in your basement and find some old stuff and go and sell it on on eBay, on Amazon, on a whole lot of other stuff, or you can go start driving for Uber. You could rent out a room in your house and sell it on Airbnb. There are so many ways for you to be able to start selling and become a business today. When I was young, Those ways did not exist. And all of these things that I'm showing you on the screen are just some ways that individuals can start this entrepreneurial journey. 20 years ago, most of what you're looking at on the screen was not possible. And that's what I mean by the barriers to entry are so low. You can do it. If you have a phone, if you have a laptop, you can start a business. Listen, if you got multiple digital devices at home, you too can start a business. But the reason why we don't is because we make excuses for ourselves why we can't. So I know many people that don't have a website and use their phone, and they're making more money than I am by just using their phone. So it's doable. If you have a device, it's doable. And if you're watching here today, you have a device. So the barriers to entry are super low. Now, I'm not saying that's where you'll end up. I'm not saying these right here are where you will end up. But what I am saying is that there's no time like the present to get the momentum going as you continue to move forward. So number one was the barriers to entry are super low. Number two, economic transformation is creating new opportunities daily. So you might be like, Pete, what are you talking about? It's harder than ever to start a business. Yeah, it is, but I'll tell you something about the good old US of A, folks. We are in the business of helping businesses start business. And you might say, Pete, why do you say that? The government wants you to start a business so that you can pay taxes. Plain and simple. They know that if you start a business, you're going to help the economy. And so all those low barriers to entry allow you to be able to pay taxes to your local municipality, to your state, and definitely to the federal government. They want that. So they're encouraging. And some of these things that you see here on the screen, these images, are testaments to why they do so. They have set up a whole division in the government for small businesses. Of course, you know about the IRS, but they're even making it so that you can save money for retirement by starting a business. So you see, yeah, it may seem like it's a crazy time, it's a crazy period, but please take me at my word. During these craziest of times is the best time to start a small business. Good stuff. All right, so that was number two. The economic opportunities exist for sure. But then listen, I love this next one because I really got a lot out of this next one right here. And listen, by doing so, you can open yourself up to your own personal growth and your own purpose, right? And what I mean by personal growth and purpose is that you can figure out what you were supposed to be here for. It may not be actually working for somebody else for the rest of your life. It may actually be doing something different. Maybe you can be a coach or a trainer, right? Who partners with individuals to help them to get more fit, to lose weight, right? Or maybe you can do something like be a tutor. And these days, tutors online, they don't even go see their students or their people they're tutoring more, right? I love entrepreneurship because I collaborate, as I mentioned earlier, I collaborate more than I do it alone. So I'm always looking for partners. I'm always looking for other people to coach me. I'm always looking for what's next because I need to benefit from these things that you see here on the screen regularly as an entrepreneur. Because even as an entrepreneur, it's not all happy days all the time. A lot of times it can be challenging days. That entrepreneurial mindset that I talked about a little while ago allows me to get through the rough places a little bit more too. Number four, creating jobs and building community. I'll pause again really quickly. See if there's any questions, comments, or thoughts. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I want to make sure that now that I got a little drink of water in me, let's dive on into number four. The other reason that the U.S. government wants you to start a business is because it creates jobs. Remember the whole tax thing that I mentioned earlier? Yes, as a business, you will pay taxes, but actually, there's even a caveat to that because you only pay taxes on the profit. Your employees will pay taxes too. So the government wants your business to be successful so you can hire more people so that more taxes get paid. It's like a circular type of thing here that's crazy. But it also helps to build community. Remember, I mentioned about partnerships and other entrepreneurs. You get to know what other people are doing. You get other people who are able to pour into you. Or if you're like me, you collaborate with them regularly, strategizing on how you can do business. Very similar to how in school, how you need that professor or you need that tutor or you need someone to give you that advice. You cannot do this entrepreneurial journey on your own. You need someone else to partner with. You need someone like the Addison Public Library, where you can go and find resources and find individuals like Matt to be able to guide you in the right direction and help you out. So, one of the most important things to recognize and realize is that you have to be able to realize that you can't do this on your own. I love this quote. This quote says, no individual has the sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. That was actually said by Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich. I also think that this whole entrepreneurship thing is like driving on the Kennedy. You ever driven on the Kennedy heading up to O'Hare or even downtown, and you're in this right lane over here, and over here someone's just flying by you? I call this the HOV theory. Yes, by ourselves, we can make some progress, but when you partner with other people, progress happens much more expeditiously. So it's so important, yes, that you can create jobs, but that community, that partnership that exists as a result of being an entrepreneur is unlike any. And I encourage you, if you are looking to dive into this, please don't do it alone. Look for who can assist you on this journey. And number five, last but not least, I believe that entrepreneurship is huge because you get more control, you take back the wheel on your destiny. Oftentimes when we're working for somebody else, they have our career in their hands. They don't treat us like they do oftentimes, but they do, you know. And by owning your own business, by starting your own business, you're taking back more of the power that you have let go. You're taking back power to be able to strategize better, right? To run the race as you desire to run it. But first, folks, but whether you're strategizing or you're running this race, you gotta dive in, right? You gotta dive on into this. And oftentimes we don't, especially in 2025 and beyond, we don't realize how ready we are to dive in. We don't realize the resources we have around us, the partnerships we have around us, the support that is there. We sometimes close the door on our opportunity faster than we have to, faster than we need to. My challenge to you all today is this. If you are thinking about it or have thought about it, dive in. Dive in. If you have the floaties on, dive in. But once you get in, please realize that there's some things that you have to do. If you just dive in the water and don't flap your arms or flap your legs, you will sink. So then it's going to be important, therefore, for you to have those daily actions, for you to set a schedule, show up, stick to it. You have to be somewhat disciplined if you want this thing to grow, if you want to start making some good money. And you have to really focus on building the right identity rather than just focusing on the money, 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 money. Yeah, good stuff. I'm gonna pause really quickly. I got these next things. So I'm getting ready to have this bonus area for you right now. Is I talked about the 5 reasons, but now I'm gonna give you 9 steps to make it happen. 9 steps. You're gonna like these ones as we continue to move forward. The 9 steps. So I gave you the 5 reasons. 5 reasons you got to do this thing. But those reasons aren't the steps. This is the bonus part of the presentation a little bit right here. And these are those 9 steps to really get momentum and build momentum. And listen, you might be at the beginning, you might have a job right now, and you might be like, I want to start a business, but is it the right time? How do I go about doing it? All that kind of good stuff. So let's jump into these 9 steps to get the ball rolling. Step number one is this right here. If you are working, and if you have a job, part-time or full-time, Peter James does not recommend that you just start quitting your job today. And it's important that you hear this from me because I want you to be able to not be homeless, but I want you to be able to have one foot in where there's some revenue, some income coming in, but still you're growing the business, right? You can focus on starting and scaling your business while you have your day job, but you have to be disciplined. You have to begin to kill some of those time wasters. You might have to start eliminating Netflix and Hulu a little bit so you can focus on doing this because time and money is important at this time, right? And oftentimes when you first start, you're not taking a salary for a while because you're trying to get the momentum going. So that's why having that job is still a good thing for sure. So number one in the 9 steps is don't quit your day job yet. Okay, number one, we said don't quit your day job. Number two, now we're diving deep into this. We need to determine the need or the opportunity that is in demand for your product or service. You need to ask yourself, is this a good idea? And are there actually people who desire to buy this? And I'll talk more about this, but it's important that you remember not everybody are going to love your product or your service. So who is the target market? Who is the niche that you want to begin marketing to first? Right? And then, of course, don't forget it's important that you collaborate with others so that they can help you identify what that niche is and how you can fine tune it as you move forward. Okay, cool. So those are the 2 steps you see there. Let's get ready to go to step number 3. We said don't quit your day job. We talked about the need of the opportunity. Number 3 is complete the idea napkin. If you Google idea napkin, this is what's going to come up. And I love this idea napkin that you see on the screen because it just asks 5 straightforward questions. Who are you? Who is on your team? What are you offering? You got to be straightforward and plain. You can't be vague. What is it specifically that you're selling? What makes your business idea, your product or your service unique? What about it? Again, be specific. Who are you offering it to? Please don't make the mistake of saying everybody wants my stuff. That's the quickest way downhill fast. Who's the niche? What's the demographic who really wants your stuff? Because you don't have the marketing money to advertise to everybody. Who's that niche? It could be suburban moms, it could be kids, it could be college students. Just know who they are specifically. And then last one, why does that person or that demographic really care about your product or your service? Yeah, it's important to know that so that when you are getting ready to put out your marketing message, you know specifically how you're going to tailor it to that audience as you continue to move forward. So look, please dive into that idea napkin. I love those 5 questions. Listen, you don't really have to go buy or even download it. If you can follow those 5 questions that I just mentioned, they're going to serve you very, very well. Okay, number 1 was don't quit your day job. Number 2, the need or the opportunity. Number 3, the idea napkin. Number 4, I've been saying this. I've been kind of hinting at this. You got to get somebody who's going to hold you accountable. For some reason, as adults, we feel like I am an adult. I don't need accountability. I don't need a teacher. I don't need someone who's going to hold my feet to the fire. But if you are starting a business, you need someone to ask you a powerful question such as, "Hey, the last time we talked, you said you were going to do that. Where are you at with it? What's been getting in the way?" If no one's asking you that, it's going to be a slow process. So now find someone who can also help you accountable to be that partner along this journey with you. Yeah, you might have to pay this individual. That's not always a bad thing, but in a lot of cases, you don't have to pay that individual. You can ask them, "Hey, do you mind being my accountability partner?" That's a great thing if you have that for sure. I have one, and let me tell you, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. But I tell you, that's a big part of the reason why I continue to see success in my business. So good stuff. All right, let's keep it moving. We're going through number one, number two, number three, number four. But now let's go over here to number five. Number five is, are you doing the adequate research to see what your competition is like? The two biggest things I talk about with my entrepreneurship students is this. You got to know your customers and you got to know your competition. Now, why do you think you have to know your competition? Because your competition, 9 times out of 10, has been doing it longer than you. They are probably making some money, and you can learn a lot from them. You can learn what to do, you can learn what not to do. And that's how you can separate yourself by learning what to do and learning what not to do. So you got to do your research. You might say, "Pete, where do I do that research at?" I'm glad you asked that question. Once again, we have Matt here on the call, and Matt is representing the Addison Library. And here at the Addison Library are free resources and databases that can help you identify who is buying, not only who is buying your products or services, but who some of your competition is in the field that you're looking at. So I've given you these ones. Of course, the last one was do some research for sure. We talked about the accountability. Let's go to number six. Number six is this. Listen, determine if you need training and then execute. And here's what I mean. You may be getting into a business that you like or like the idea of, but you don't know too much about it. It's time for you to level up, for lack of a better word, right? It's time for you to get that training. And again, here's an example. You may not be good at sales. You may not be good at creating websites, online platforms. Listen, as Matt mentioned earlier, you may not be good at talking in front of audiences. There are places to get better at this stuff, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I've been to Toastmasters. I was a member for years because why? I wanted to get better at public speaking, just even speaking to others, right? You don't always have to go back to college to sharpen these skills. There's too many other resources, even as the Addison Public Library talks about, you can find out what they are there so that you can get a little bit trained up in what you need to get better at as you move forward. All right, so we are trucking right along with these 9 steps. We started out with those 5 reasons. Now we're in those 9 steps to really get the momentum going. Here's what we got so far. Let's go to number 7. Now it's time to get deep and dirty, right? Now it's time to know what you need to charge. So the question might be, where do you find out what to charge for your product or your service? Unfortunately, most people just pull it out of their butt, but we're not most people. So we're doing our research, we're doing our due diligence. We are seeing what our competition is charging. We are doing that research that Matt described as well. We are talking to people to see, hey, what are you willing to pay for this, that, or the other before we go ahead? And then you want to test it. You're at the supermarket and you're at the end of the aisle and there's that person and they're always trying to get you to try something to test it out. But after you finish testing it, because my kids love that person on the end of the aisle for sure, they want you to be like, they'll say to me, "Oh, your kids love it. You should buy it." Right? That's why that testing, that prototype, that model is so, so important because you can get people to say, "Hey, do I actually like this or don't I? And if I do, what am I willing to pay for it as well?" So you got to be able to get out there and test the market. You got to figure out the pricing and figure out what's the best way to get going. Listen, oftentimes the prices you start with are not the prices you continue with. So it's so, so important to know and do your due diligence as you continue to move forward. We're at number 8, folks, and here's the 7 ones that we've went through already. Number 8 is this: after you've tested your market, I recommend, hey, you know what? You started out with a business plan that was 5 questions, and that was called the idea napkin. But now it's time to dive on into the one-page plan. And you might be like, Peter, what do you mean? Now, most of you may have heard about business plans being pages and pages of documents. Yes, business plans are mostly pages and pages of documents, mostly if you are getting a loan. But if you are not getting a loan right away, the next step after that napkin, the idea napkin, I recommend is the one-page business plan by Chris Gillibo. And you can find it at 100startup.com. But here are the questions. Kind of what we answered a little bit, but now we're going a little bit deeper. What will you sell? Who will buy it? How will your business idea help people? What will you charge? How will you get paid? You think that's an easy question, but there's too many ways you can get paid these days, right? How else will you make money from this project? How will customers learn? So you see all these questions that really allow you to go deeper. And that's what we're doing, folks. We're figuring out ways to go even deeper as we move forward. Okay. And that's why I love this one-page business plan. And then I'm getting ready to tell you the ninth step to get momentum. And step number 9 is this right here, folks. After you've done all these other things here, it might be time, and you're making a little bit of money, it might be time to become legitimate. Peter, what do you mean by become legitimate? Listen, you don't have to have a name, a website, a license, or an EIN to start. Remember, you can just go down in your basement and start selling stuff on eBay or Craigslist or Amazon. But if you are starting to make money, if the money is starting to grow, if you're building momentum, then getting that website, getting that name, getting that license, getting that employment identification number may be next. Even insurance may be next on your radar. You notice a lot of people think they have to start with the website, the name, the license, the EIN first. And so they'll put this here and they'll make that an excuse of why they can't do this thing because they're intimidated by, oh, I don't have a lawyer. Or I'm here proof to show you and tell you you don't need it to start. You just need to start and then partner and then figure it out along the way. Grow. Do those things that I'm mentioning here. And then when you start building momentum, figure out now it's time to get that license and then EIN. So those are the 9 things, the 9 steps. I gave you the 5 reasons up front, but the 9 steps kind of piggyback on top of those. Listen, ultimately, folks, the thing is, what I'm sharing with you right now can seem like a little bit daunting, but the reason it feels that way is because change sometimes feels a little bit difficult to us, right? And I'm going to be the first one to tell you, once you're in this game, it's not for the faint of heart because I know more people that have dropped out of the game that remain in it. And remember, I should I shared this with you before. You kind of gotta, once you jump in, You can't jump into the pool and just think you're swimming. You gotta do some strokes. You gotta kick your legs. You gotta be disciplined. And if you want to be a really good swimmer, you gotta get lessons, right? You gotta get technique. All of this. Listen, I'm living proof. My stuff that I shared with you earlier, those companies, they've turned into way more than just those companies. I've used the ones that are most affiliated with to launch into more speaking, investing, big so and real estate even, right? And so I'm saying that because in order to do bigger and more, you got to start somewhere. You got to start small. There's still so many people think that there's a way to get fast money in this world, and there are, and they're usually not legal. So I'm just telling you the legal ways to do it. And again, if you can embrace all this stuff and these things that I'm sharing with you on the screen right here, then I can almost guarantee you'll be successful. But you have to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, hey, do I have that growth mindset to lean in? Do I have the stomach for it as well? So, all that being said, the question is, what does this look like for you now? After these reasons, after these steps, what does it look like for you? And I'm going to pause on this next slide right here for you all who are listening and saying, hey, based on everything that I've talked about today, whether it's the reasons or the steps, what is one thing that you can implement beginning tomorrow? Well, just one thing to get the ball going. What does it need to look like? Right? I'm going to pause really quickly after for you to reflect on this a little bit. The next slide will show a little bit of my contact information. But the big question is, what are you doing? What are you going to do with all this information? You spent some time watching it, listening to me. What are you going to do tomorrow? So Matt, I think I'm just about done, my friend. This is my contact screen. I have a newsletter called the Monday Morning Minute. It's just a dose of inspiration that hits your inbox every single Monday. That's it there on the screen. I'll put the link also in the chat, but also there's some other ways to stay in touch with me, whether it's LinkedIn or other things as well.